Hello, world. Welcome to the Elise Morgan Experience. I have an amazing guest today. I'm your host, Elise Morgan, and my guest is Jillian Scott. She is a trauma certified life and weight loss coach. She helps people break free from binge eating and toxic relationship cycles so that they can call in and attract their dream partner naturally and feel amazing in their body year round. Well, all I know is I want to know where you were about, say, 10 years ago.
Right?
Because binge eating and toxic relationships probably used to be my middle name. So before we go dive right in.
Full disclosure, 10 years ago, that's where smack dab where I was too.
Yeah,
So,
maybe not 10, 15, but yeah. I two topics that are dear to my heart, or should I say near to my heart? I don't know if they're so dear.
Yeah.
But before we dive in, why don't you tell the listeners, who you are personally, where you're from, and how did you get into, this type of coaching?
Yeah. So I'm Jillian. I grew up in California until I was 10. So I'm originally a Cali girl, moved across the country to Ohio, lived there for 5 years, and then moved abroad. And so I have been moving around every 1 to 2 years for the last 25. Now I'm located in the South. I'm in sunny Southern Alabama. So enjoying my little stint down here, hopefully for a while. But this is the longest I have lived anywhere in the last 25 years. And I'm at 2 years and 2 months. So
wow.
It's a lot of it has been self-directed. Some of it was for a parent's job. Some of it was for like my ex-husband's job. Sometimes it was my own job, my own career, my own kind of just whims. Sometimes it was just God-led. It was God-inspired. And it was what I felt like I was supposed to do at the time, even though it didn't make sense. And so that's kind of what kind of created this business, and it's been a journey. So I first got into entrepreneurship when I was about 24 years old. I started a bakery in Bangladesh, and I went overseas. My mom's in the foreign service, so I went overseas to live with them. Was going to adult, pay off my student loans, get a job at the embassy. Embassy went on a hiring freeze, and I couldn't, I was kind of promised a job and then got in the country and no longer had a job. And so it was just one of those really defining moments where I was like, okay, God, I feel like this is where you wanted me. What the hell? What's going on? And so it was something where I got to start a bakery. I did end up eventually working at the embassy. And then I ended up meeting my now ex-husband, but my husband there. We were married for 10 years. And so that really got me into entrepreneurship. When I came back to the States, I worked a few different jobs. I got into social media and business consulting and coaching. And then from there, it was just kind of this evolution of okay, what's not just what I'm good at in a zone of excellence, but what's my zone of genius? Where am I, where could I see myself being a thought leader? What do I feel like I have my own ideas on? And I'm not just regurgitating what somebody else is spitting out. And so I got my health coaching and life coaching certifications in 2018. And then from there, it was kind of this dive into the weight loss space, and then into my own, really recognizing my own emotional eating and binge eating and solving that, and then helping clients do the same. And so it's just kind of been one little stepping stone at a time. So I brought in the emotional eating, binge eating really in 2020. And then just within this past year and a half, I've really brought in kind of the toxic relationship side of things, because what I noticed was that not just with myself, but with clients, every single person that I worked with had some kind of toxic person in their life, whether it was a parent or a step-parent, a sibling, a spouse, an ex-spouse, an ex-boyfriend or girlfriend. It was everywhere. And I started to notice these patterns as I was recognizing patterns in my own relationships. I was starting to see them in other people. And even though you can go no contact with a parent, you can, divorce a spouse, you still have these lingering side effects and thought processes that kind of carry on with you. And there's these cycles that we get stuck in, to where we keep dating the same person, just a different face. We keep getting back into these same things, right? And it can be where it's we grow up in that. And so it becomes it's so familiar. It's I told myself I didn't want to marry somebody like my stepdad, who for me was just dad. I didn't want to marry somebody like him. And then I kind of did. And I was like, oh my gosh, what? Like, how did this
Yeah.
happen? And so it's really a lot of what I teach and coach on has been so much of my own personal story and just awareness with food and body image and relationships and this kind of tie underneath with codependency and feeling like I'm not good enough outside of myself.
Yeah, that's for me. It's, you're touching on so much that I also went through. We'll talk
Yeah.
about that, but it's like people often ask, what's the difference between a life coach and a therapist? And I know, and don't negate therapy whatsoever,
Mhm,
and cognitive
mhm.
therapy and all the things.
Yeah.
However, a lot of the people that go to therapy, the person sitting across from you didn't walk in your shoes and
Mhm.
overcome it themselves. So
Right.
it's like, that's why we're so good at what we do, because we're
Mhm.
literally most of the time, sometimes we fall back and whatever, but walking the talk that we are trying to help you with, and we can actually say, like, I know exactly how you feel,
Right.
literally. And I think that's very comforting for people,
Yeah.
especially, I know for me, we spoke a little bit before, but I wanted this
Mhm.
to be really off the cuff. For me, I think I told you, like, I grew up that overeating was the norm anyway. Like, it was
Mhm,
just,
mhm.
we were an upper middle class family, had money. So if we went out to eat, like, everyone got 6 dishes, and it was like
Right.
this free for all. But
Yeah.
then you, like, almost were taught to binge eat. But then, in retrospect, I was also emotionally binge eating. And then,
Mhm,
the whole thing
mhm.
with that. So can you explain why, like, is there a premise on why someone, let's say, binge eats as opposed to becomes an alcoholic? Or
Sure.
like,
Yeah.
is there a reasoning why people may choose it? I mean, we all know that food is the number one drug source. I mean,
Mhm, mhm.
it is a drug, but is
Yeah.
there something underneath it all that people choose that?
Yeah, and it's hard because we also need food to survive, and so
Exactly.
this becomes, like, the real challenge is with actual drugs. With alcohol, we technically, like, we don't need them. However, we do need food, and so that's where I believe, like, where our brain is wired, where we are always getting a hit of dopamine with food, not just with high fat, high sugar, high salt. It's any type of food will give us a hit of dopamine, and I think that's a biological reason, like, because we needed to stay alive. Like, that's how, we've been wired and, like, purposely programmed. And so with whether it's alcohol or it's food, your brain has learned that this substance creates a rapid, reliable, effective sense of relief. So
Mhm.
what happens is we get into these states where our brain has learned. So, and if we kind of take a step back, right, we've got different parts of our brain. And I always talk about our brain like a mullet, right? So we got business in the front, party in the back. So our
Right.
business brain is our thinking brain. That's where we do all of our goal setting and planning. This is why at 8 a.m. you're like, yeah, I'm going to go low carb today, no sugar, I'm going to be so good, no wine tonight. And by 2 p.m., 6 p.m., 8 p.m., that is out the window because now your habit brain has taken over and your habit brain wants to seek pleasure and avoid pain via the path of least resistance. And the
Exactly.
pain is real or perceived, and it's physical, mental, or emotional. So the same receptors in our brain that light up when we cut an arm is the same pain. It's the same receptors in our brain that light up when we feel threatened, when we feel embarrassed, when we feel judged, when we feel like we're not enough, when we are stressed and anxious. And so that is what our brain is always wired to protect us from, is to keep us from those negative emotions. And so it becomes really easy to stop by the gas station or the grocery store, to rummage through the pantry, to stop by the liquor store.
Mhm.
It's like it becomes so easy of like this, our brain just makes this connection of this thing makes me feel better. And that's all it's looking for. So it's kind of that hit of dopamine. It also comes out in relationships, and it could be
Mm.
in dating. So for me, I was getting my emotional needs met through a dating app. Like after the divorce and after a breakup, I got right back on the dating app because it was like, now this person makes me feel special, chosen, wanted, loved. Like
Right.
I got that hit of dopamine and I got those emotional needs met in not always a healthy way. And so it's like, that's why I bring these two things together, is because we're looking for something or someone outside of ourselves to make us feel better. So it's just an emotional tie. Now, why it is alcohol for some people and food for others, it's part of it is just your personal preference. It's what we learn. It's what we've kind of how we've trained our brains. Some people have learned like, well, wine helps me to relax it. A beer helps me to end the night. Other people have learned that it's food that becomes their go-to. And I think the chronic dieting and this restrict binge regret cycle we get into also plays a role into why it can be easier to binge on food, because now there's multiple layers. It's often if we take it away, we want it more, right? So it's like when we give ourselves access to this quote forbidden food, we actually reduce binging. Binging decreases when we do that. But the food rules and the restriction is what seems normal. It's what makes us feel safe. This is how I lose weight. It's what creates this sense of like, well, this worked in the past.
Right.
It's like, it's the love bombing that we keep going back to, is that diet of like,
Yes.
but this is how I get my needs met. This is how I feel better. But because of that restriction, we're always overcompensating for it. So whether it's a night or a week or a whole month, right? It's like a cheat meal turns into a cheat day, turns into a cheat weekend, turns into I'm off my plan on February 6th, but maybe I'll start again on March kind of thing.
Yeah. And I think, for me, and I'm so excited to speak with you because I've lived this and I competed. So not only did I learn to eat like that, and when I was younger, it was very bad, and I'll get into it. But the competing obviously made it worse because now you're in deprived mode, and it's weird. You don't really, at least I didn't really binge on a when you're training for the show because it just I don't remember if I did or I didn't, because that's a real that will really mess you up. But the after, you'll have the competitors who are just normally overeating after the show because you just are almost rewarding yourself and you're deprived,
right?
But they don't have that. They have the off switch,
right?
And then they don't have that like, oh, I messed up, or I have that that black and white thinking. I know for me it was like still it's much better now. I don't binge, but when I did, it's like it's that all or nothing. It's like you're either on the plan or off the plan. And what people who don't have binge eating disorder, if you have no idea. It's not like, oh, you overate on the weekend because you're at a wedding.
Right.
It is how I describe it is like you're on autopilot and you're just shoving, after the first 20, not even 20 minutes, maybe 5 minutes, because you can eat a lot. After the first 10 minutes, you don't even feel good anymore eating it. Now, at least for me, now you're searching for like, what else can I get in before I have to go tomorrow? And then you get so sick that there isn't even joy in it. And then, like I call it the how fast can you get back mode in your head? Because maybe the next day you can get back on track, but then the circle of it is now you feel bad about yourself. And what do you do when you feel bad about yourself? You eat, and it's this whole thing. And a lot of times it's so shameful and it's so embarrassing. And, like I remember getting, you just get so gassy and like you're just, who are you, in my circle, I wasn't that embarrassed because I would like almost binge eat at parties. People knew, they were like, wow, she's either on a plan or she, gets 65 desserts and she's still looking up. And they hated me because I was always in good shape because I never really got out of shape. But even eating that way in front of all these people still wasn't true the way you eat when you're alone.
Yes. Right.
It's very like, I equate it to, I'm not going to get into the whole story, but I was in a, what would you call like a function or a class, whatever it was, with people that were addicted to alcohol. And I didn't relate to them at all with the alcohol, but I related so much with the thought process of food that it's like, you get in the car and you almost like, even though you're going to feel like shit, I couldn't wait. Like I would, you can't wait to get it and to eat it. And then so soon after you're like, why did I do that?
Yeah, right. Because on our conscious brain, we're like, we're not buying it. We're going to save money. We're not going to get it from the grocery store. But then for me, it was like I would stop by someplace like the gas station, the Walgreens, maybe even a grocery store, and I would get like the snacks. I would go specifically to buy ice cream or chocolate, but I wouldn't just want to buy that. So I'd go get like an apple and a banana and some other things for my shopping cart. Like I didn't even want to check out at the cash register with only ice cream and cookies and like chocolate, and like complete strangers. But yeah, I remember like I lived with some housemates at one point, and I would binge in my room, and then I would hide the wrappers in a like Kroger bag, and then throw the Kroger bag in the trash or throw it into the big trash can where it's like nobody could see it. Nobody could see what was happening. It was like stuffing stuff at the bottom. You'd hide wrappers in the bottom of the trash, eating a lot in the dark, in secret, when nobody else was home, when nobody was watching. When I was married, it was, especially in the beginning and I was binging, it was like, oh, good, he's in the field tonight. Oh, okay, finally I can relax and just eat whatever I want, whenever I want, however much I want. And it was just like, I didn't have him looking at me or judging me or, any perceived judgment. It was just like, oh, okay, I'm free and I can eat what I want. And then when he deployed and he's gone for, 9 months, that's also that's like when the binging would kind of take over more.
Yeah, I'm thinking about it with my current husband. I'm married now. When we were first dating, he still loves sweets, but he would have like every flavor of Oreos. And like in front of him, he knew I ate them, but when let's say went to bed, then I would like, it was like a dance because I didn't want him to know that I ate a whole package.
Uh-huh.
But I couldn't. Like if I was in my own house, I would have maybe ate 3 packets. Who the hell knows? But it's like, for me, it was like, I was still so aware of that other person. And that in and of itself is so almost sad. Like you're just you can't wait to get this thing in your mouth and like you have to hide it and you don't feel free, but you don't even feel free within yourself.
Mm-hmm.
To eat a couple of cookies. There's not a couple of cookies. And for me, like I didn't really hide. I'm trying to think back because it's been so long. Like when I went to the supermarket on the binges, it was to binge. I didn't care because no one knew who I was buying it for. Or if I went to a drive-thru, I'd order, oh, I'm having a party. Like they don't know it's all.
Yeah, right.
And I would it's so strange to say. I haven't really said this to anybody. Like I was always so excited, like all my food. And it's so weird how that good feeling, like I'm so excited. I can't wait to eat this. I'm going to get this and this and get, taste everything. And I, spent an inordinate amount of money on it. Yeah. And then you just feel like shit after. So it's so weird how like you go from feeling like can't wait. Even like I used to say it. That's not when, if you were in, like I was in OA when I was younger, that when you're finally getting to the store and excited, you're not calling anyone.
Right.
So I used to try and say, how can I get to the point of not where you don't care what anyone says, like you almost would kill somebody.
Right.
So how do you help somebody in that respect that they're aware that they're a binge eater? They might not know why they're doing it. So a lot of people, in my experience, they know they binge eat, but they don't even know why. So we can get to that.
They don't.
But go ahead.
They don't know why, and then they don't know how to stop.
Right.
So we want to address 2 angles is how I teach it. So we want to address, how do I handle that urge in the moment, the desire for food in the moment. It's being able to say no from a place of self-love, which means you have to be able to we have to let go of food rules. We have to stop the restriction. So when we let go of the restrictive dieting and what food is good or bad, we stop moralizing food. We stop moralizing ourselves based on what we eat, which sometimes we have to like kind of stair step our way down out of food rules. Because for me, like I would binge, but it would be like low carb everything. So it would be on nuts and popcorn and jerky and low carb protein bars or low carb ice cream. But I would not eat a piece of bread. I wouldn't eat rice. Like it was this very morphed relationship with food. And so it's like we have to start by changing what we're eating, how we're planning, how we're thinking about it, really listening to our bodies is like, okay, have I had enough? And learning to say no from a place of love and compassion, not out of punishment. And I always remind myself, so I give myself 1 dessert every day. Always. I'm always allowed to have 1 dessert every single day. And some days I don't eat one, but it's always allowed. It's always on plan because I know that when I take it away, I want it more. And so when it's there, now I know like, oh, even if I want more, I get another one tomorrow. This is okay. Like we create safety with food versus the scarcity that we can create with the dieting. So that's one aspect. One aspect is how do we handle those in the moment desires and urges? Because it's that quick hit. And usually though the intense part of it is going to last about 2 minutes. And beyond that, it lasts longer because we are just debating and in this tug of war in our brain. Like that's what makes it last longer. But the real urge and sensation typically does not last more, the intense parts, more than 2 minutes. But we also need to understand what's driving that root desire for food. So we need to understand underneath it, what emotions am I trying to create? What emotions am I trying to like railroad over? I have to be really honest now about my honest thoughts about myself, where I'm at in my life, with my career, with my spouse. Thoughts like, I should be further along by now. I should be thinner. I should be losing more weight. We have to come face to face with the shame and the regret and the things that we've carried for maybe years, decades. It really, like, for a long time, I mean, I'm a very happy, positive person. And so when I was first working on my binge eating, there was a girl, I think her name was Samantha Skelly. I don't know if she still does this or not, but she was like, I bought a course of hers. It was like $500. And all she said, the whole thing was just like, feel your feelings. And I was like, I am feeling my feelings, damn it. And I am pissed off that I spent $500 on this. Like, you taught me nothing. Like, I am pissed. But I was like, I am feeling my feelings. I'm fine. I'm happy. Damn it. Like, and so part of it is just like really that it's like the willingness to be honest of like, how do you really think and feel about yourself? How do you really feel with your spouse or with your ex? How do you really feel based on how you grew up? What are those wounds that you're really not willing to look at? And this is where sometimes therapy can be beneficial. And this is what I do as a trauma-informed coach is we will look backwards so that we can see and understand the patterns in order to break them moving forward. So there's a couple different dynamics, but like you said, coaching is very much future focused. It's this is where I'm going, this is where I want to get to. But sometimes we have to understand the things like self-sabotage, that's really self-protection. It is your brain trying to keep you safe. And so with the binge eating, we have to address both sides of the coin. We have to address in the moment those urges and desires for food. And we need to address the emotional side of things too. And sometimes a big part of the binging just comes from the chronic dieting, all the food rules, the Frankenstein diet rules of like, I mean, this is like, 2010, 2015, and I'm still trying to do low carb and low fat and low calorie and, like this
all the things,
Frankenstein diet and run like 5 miles a day and lift weights and do that. It's like, well, no wonder. Like I'm literally trying to starve my body. And because that's what we're told we're supposed to do in order to lose weight. And it's just, we really have to like let go of everything we've been taught about diet and exercise. And like, it's scary because that's where we think we know what we're supposed to do. And so I was terrified that if I let go of these food rules, I was just going to blow up and balloon into like, 300 pounds. And I did not, right? Like, it's like, no, trust the body. Like I wasn't losing weight when I was running so much and exercising so hard, not because of like carbs. The issue wasn't that I had to do, it was like, cause I ate a piece of bread. It was because I kept binging every night because I wasn't eating the bread, because I wasn't fueling my body with real food.
Feeling it. Right. What comes to mind is taking out the binge eating. I feel everyone, the first thing, let me go back. The first thing everyone needs with anything in their life is the awareness. So awareness has to come first with anything that you're going through. And a lot of people in society walk around sleeping, if you will, right, about everything. They're like in this mode of like autopilot. And with the binge eating, like when you said in the first like 2 minutes, I remember for myself, it's like you almost just give in because you can't handle the conflict in your head anymore. It's like, it's fucking, let me just eat it.
Yes,
because I can't do this anymore. But for me, it's like, it was so different. Like I didn't do the binging on the low carb and low whatever, because just was full on blowing, like on a mission. Like I remember like, I don't want to smoke weed. I already eat like I smoke weed.
Right. Yeah.
But I would like drive from place to place. It was almost like an activity. It wasn't, I can't explain it. So for me, it wasn't like, oh, I'm depriving myself and, in my binge, I was binging because it was all or nothing. But when I did diet, it wasn't, I never really starved myself when I was younger. I think I had like a slight anorexic thing where you like have to eat a certain place and the certain calories and all that. It was more like this beating myself up with food. Like,
Mhm.
why, the enjoyment of the food, but why do you want to why do you want to beat yourself up with this food? Because that's what I
Mhm.
felt like. You're taking food
Mhm.
and beating yourself up with it. And before I became aware, I remember when I finally was leaving my husband, I
Mhm.
knew I binged. I went to OA a little bit, but I still didn't really 100% know. I
Mhm.
just knew that
Mhm.
I was shoving feelings down, but I
Yeah.
didn't know what those feelings were. And it was so
Yeah.
ironic when I finally told him I wanted to leave, and the process of that. I didn't binge for so long after that because for years I wanted to leave or whatever, say what I wanted to say. So it was so eye opening for me that when I got my voice out
Yeah.
a little bit, I didn't get my full voice out, but to say what I wanted, I didn't have that urge to binge. So it was
Yeah.
that
Right.
correlation of like, what are you shoving down? So a lot of like for me,
Yeah.
it wasn't so much of like I'm restricting. Mine was like, what am I shoving down? What am
Yeah.
I shutting
Yeah.
down? On top of the all or nothing thinking, on top of
Right.
that,
Right.
stress or whatever. So it fascinates me how with binge eating, with other people, they purge, they
Mhm.
binge and purge. Like I would never purge. I don't even think I
Yeah, no,
can.
I couldn't. I never
Yeah,
could. Like, there were times when I, like, wanted to, but I
me
couldn't.
too.
Like, I
I
just
couldn't.
could never get myself to do that.
I could
And
be like food up to here and it would
mhm.
never,
Mhm.
would never go out. And I didn't have, I know that's a whole other psychological
Mhm.
process
Mhm.
to the eating
Right.
disorder part. So I know there are other reasons for that. So my question too, I'm going to give you like put you on the spot here for a second. So
Mhm.
like I do not binge eat anymore. I don't have the desire,
Mhm.
thankfully. But when I'll give you like a little history of this past few years. So menopause kind of hit.
Mhm.
And so my body was changing without me, doing much of different. Or
Mhm.
when I did overeat, it was catching up to you, or just the whole thing. And I got so frustrated because even the healthy way to stay in
Mhm.
shape was not working. And I curse, I would get what a lot of I think binge eaters do, the case of the fuck it's. Like,
Yeah.
fuck it, why am I eating clean, if you will? I mean, eating
Yeah.
like I wasn't eating strict, but eating clean, trying not to eat. Granted, when we say, I'm going to go back, you want to keep foods in your diet so that you don't binge eat, but you also want to be healthy. So you don't want to be
Yeah.
eating
Right. Like,
muffins and cake
moderation
and breakfast,
still.
whatever. So
Yeah.
like I was always like, if we went out to eat, I wanted something, I would get it. But I got such a bad case of the fuck it's, which in a sense to me, I want to ask you your opinion. Is it like a controlled binge? Because for a few weeks at a time or a month at a time, I'd be the fuck it's and have wine every night and dessert. Did I have a whole cake? Did I have 15 cakes? No, I have a big appetite, so I'd have a big piece of cake and two
Uh-huh.
glasses of wine, and then every night the fuck it. Like you don't need cake and wine every night. At least when you're going through that, it's just not good for you. So
Right.
you think
Right.
that people can have almost like you're binging, but you're not
Yeah,
type
so
of thing?
I think about it a little bit like there's a spectrum, right? So you've got maybe overeating, and then you've got overeating, then maybe a step above is emotional eating, and then beyond that is binge eating. And there are going to be different flavors, different reasons as to why we're binging, why we're emotionally eating. But everybody has like we follow the same cycle path, but there's often like little details that are different. And so it's kind of like it evolves. And so one of the things that I tell people is to like look at the progress. And it like people will celebrate. I will celebrate with clients when they're like, I overate, but I felt that bingy desire and I resisted it and I said no and I stopped. Or I started to binge. I could feel myself getting into that like binge like mood. And I gave myself 3 more bites and I stopped. And
Mhm.
so you can. So sometimes it's more of like I overate and not I binged. And binging is what I consider binging is it's a large amount of food in a short amount of time. And there's often a lot of shame and regret. And
Mhm.
there's often a lot of times it's done in secret or when it's like done kind of on your own. So there's a lot of shame
Yes.
associated with it. And so it is very much, like you said, like a psychological aspect, not just like the physical consuming of food. But some people will eat like, 6 donut holes and they'll be like, well, I binged on the donut holes. And I'm like, or you could say you just ate when you weren't hungry. Like
Right.
part of it is like, let's use the language that's going to help us feel empowered and encouraged and not feel helpless. And that was one of the biggest things, is like reminding us that we're not helpless. So for you, maybe you weren't binging, but maybe you were overeating, or you were like you weren't following your plan. If your plan was to not drink, or you would have liked to have not been drinking. And then it's like, then we have to look at, like, we're eating to avoid feeling frustrated with the fact that we're eating healthy, we're eating on plan, but we're not seeing the changes we want in our body or on the scale, or kind of however we're looking for it. So we have to really, it's like, we got to address that, because that's why we're saying, fuck it. We're like, we're frustrated, we're angry, we're not seeing the results. And then it's like, well, why would I keep on saying no to this thing if I'm still not sleeping well, and if I'm still not losing weight, and I'm still not seeing the changes? Then totally, like, fuck it. I'm just gonna, like, might as well just keep going, like, drinking, like, even if it's not a lot, it's that daily habit.
It's it becomes, for me, it became like, I've lived a healthy lifestyle most of the time. You're not depriving yourself, but you're choosing to be healthy every day. And then it's like, part of me was like, what, why?
Yeah.
Through it, and I remember going, I would like to talk about this because I want you to hear it, so you can, give me some feedback, and so the listeners can hear.
Yeah.
Because I was in this state that I just spoke about, like my body was changing, nothing's, I'm on the way back now, thankfully, but my body was changing, and I was like, so I would basically eat healthy as much as possible, because that's just who I am. It's part of my lifestyle. And we were going to Italy, my husband and I. And not only was the best trip ever, because it was beautiful there, and I loved it there, because I wasn't on a plan. I felt so free. There wasn't the vacation wasn't anything about food in any bad way at all, because and I wasn't comfortable in my body. I want to talk about this too, because I didn't feel comfortable in my body. I had to buy different clothes. I didn't walk around. I try and teach this to even my own clients, but it's hard for me to love myself as is. I work on that a lot. I would say to myself, what if you stayed in this body for the rest of your life? I actually did a podcast episode on it. Like, you have to be self-acceptance and view yourself as beautiful as you are in that, what do they call that middle space between where you want to be, and
the river of misery between where you are now and where you want to be. That's what I call it.
And I remember saying to myself, look how, like, besides you feeling, but like the freedom of being in a country and not be like, where am I going to get my egg whites, and where am I going to get my oatmeal, and, just being free. And, I remember my husband was on gelato patrol, we called it, to see the best gelato. And I was on tiramisu and pizza, because I love tiramisu and I love pizza. And mind you, I did not find one good piece of pizza in Italy. I'm from New York, so the pizza. So I was just, but there wasn't like, should I eat the pizza? Maybe I shouldn't. It was just this. And I felt so free. And that's what, I think everyone that has binge eating wants. You get so sick of that, like getting invited to a party, and it's just, and even my friends back then, it's just a different era of my life. They were all like, I always had the attention of, wow, you're so, how do you keep such discipline? Like, if you're at a wedding or something. And then if I did have something on my plate, oh, you eat that? Like, I couldn't, like, I couldn't.
Everybody's watching, and
everybody's always watching. So
commenting.
Because of the field I was in, competing, people are competing. And then it just, the whole thing was like a clusterfuck for a binge eater. Because it was, and I see it in my family. So do you see it familial in families?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, a lot of this can be very much learned at a young age. Our brain learns that food makes us feel better, that food is how we escape the trauma. Food is how we escape any type of negative emotion. And we see it mimic, or like modeled for us. And then we mimic and mirror that behavior a lot of times. And so when we moved overseas the first time, we weren't with we were with a non-governmental organization. And so we felt like we didn't really know any other English speakers there, felt like the only Americans in the former Soviet Union. And we would go and get like an American style candy bar, like a Mars, think they had Snickers, Twix. We'd go get a candy bar every night from the little kiosk and then go home and like watch a movie. And that was like my sisters, like those were our first memories of like emotionally eating. And it was this like nostalgia. It reminds us of home. We don't feel so culture shocked. I mean, because you literally like, it was like they picked my parents, bless them. They did their best. They tried, but like they literally like picked us up out of suburban Ohio and dropped us into the former Soviet Union, where Tbilisi, Georgia, was at war with Russia. There were days without gas, days without electricity. You would get electricity for an hour in the morning, an hour at night. We lived on the 8th story of an apartment building. You never use the elevator because you don't want to get trapped in it. Like just insane, like insane stuff. Like it was very third world status. I was 15. So I was a freshman in high school and then a sophomore. And like good, like amazing experience. Like God used it in so like travel opportunities. I trained with Olympic athletes. Like we got to see all kinds of things. Like it was a really like looking back, it sucked at times. It gave me something to write my college essay story about, though. I'll tell you that. Like,
yeah, really, that's a good essay.
So, you know, and like moving around, I went to 5 high schools. So it was hard for me to make friends sometimes. And I was always looking at how do I fit in? And this became like, I felt like a chameleon. It's like, who do you need me to be? Which if we kind of weave in the toxic relationships, it's like, well, you're cute. I like you. Who do you need me to be? I'll be her to make you happy. That way we can like stay together and we can create something. And so it wasn't even this real intentional conscious thing. It was very subconscious, but it was like, I want to be cool. I want to fit in. I just want the boys to like me. I want, you know, it's like wanting that like stereotypical high school experience. At least that's what I wanted.
Right.
And it just, you know, like moving around so much, like, and it was kind of hard to keep friendships, and being gone for a couple years and coming back, going to another high school. It just was like, I didn't even keep the friends that I had in middle school really. So, you know, it was tricky.
It's very resilient. Like you said, you had a great experience, but, like myself, I'm like, when you said you traveled so much, I was like, oh, I envy you. But it is hard, and it just goes to show anyone listening, whatever you're going through, there's always the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah,
and you can get through anything and come out resilient if you choose to be. So you brought up, you know, we talked a lot about the binge eating, and we can always go back to that because I could talk about that forever, because like I'm a great protege for you, if that's right. But toxic relationships. So let's speak a little bit about that and how they go together, because I think, you know, I was in a divorce group as an expert in the field. That was my first like divorce niche, if you will. Was my niche when I first started life coaching, and now I just do a lot of different things. But it's fascinating how many divorces obviously are not just regular breakups, just these toxic, narcissistic, they all like the same person in different bodies doing the same things. And let's talk about a little bit about that, because that is so stressful, especially for me at the time. I didn't know the label of my husband. I didn't know those things. You feel like you got run over by a Mack truck. And then the aftermath, and you mentioned a little bit in our private call, that was some of the aftermath that you have gone through now, even right. And I don't think women know what they're going through. Like they just know what's happening, but they don't know how to, regulate their bodies, regulate their nervous systems. This is for anything, not even just divorce. Just take that step back, that pause, so that you could respond instead of react.
Right.
You know what I mean? And then also deal with all those emotions so that you're not grabbing that, candy bar anger, or like just, or even the wine or whatever. So let's talk about like how you found that like a lot of the people that you are helping, the binge eaters, have a narcissist somewhere in their life.
So I This is wild. I actually reconnected with a former client and I told her, I was like, thank you. I was like, you helped me start to see, and like you started me on this journey of awareness to be able to help other clients, because she had left her boyfriend, who was like very much a narcissist. I remember looking up the term and I was like, okay. And she was like, yeah, he's got a lot of those traits. She was talking about her boyfriend at the time. And so she left him, she moved out, moved in with somebody else, was just trying to like figure stuff out. And then she called him one night. And in my mind, I'm like, why did you call him, honey? But I didn't know, like I knew nothing about trauma bonds. I knew nothing about cognitive dissonance. I knew nothing about that. And so when we reconnected recently, I was like, thank you so much for like, for hiring me, for working with me, for choosing me, because like I know I impacted her a lot, but she impacted me a lot. And it was through that awareness where I was like, oh, like I started to understand and do more research on my own and read more books and understand how I grew up. I started to understand like more of the marriage that I was in. And then as I was waking up to the relationships that I had been in or was in, then I also started to see these same patterns and these same traits coming out in other people. And sometimes you just don't have the words to talk about it with. But I know with my marriage, it was like, it seemed like we were totally great, dating for 6 months, engaged for a year. Like it was like beautiful. Maybe some little ruffled feathers. I can look back and, see like a couple little red flags, but like not a lot. And then after we got married, it was like things changed. And I remember like we didn't live together at first. And then we had lived together, or because it was like 6 months, he was in training or something like that. We lived together for like a month or two. And I was like, I don't want to be married anymore. Like can we go back to like when we were dating and engaged? That was great. Could we just like, something happened when we got married and it was like, who is this person? And I think I was also trying to hide my own eating habits and shame and body image. And then it was like, I wasn't like sexy enough for him and dancing around the house naked all the time. And so like, now I'm letting him down. And there was so much like, that was not being communicated well, and so it's like year after year, we keep ending up in these same cycles, similar blow-ups over and over again. And I kept feeling like if I could just get us back to when we were dating and engaged, like if I could just get us back to what I now see as like a love bombing phase,
right?
I thought was real love, it's like, if we could just get back there, things could be great. And occasionally they would go back there and things would be okay for a little while, but
that's the circle.
Yep, that's the cycle. And so there came a point where I was like, oh my gosh, I'm starting to realize it, not just in these maybe big fights that would happen once a year, but on a monthly basis, a weekly basis, just feeling invalidated and demeaned. And there comes a point where you can't unhear words. Like you can't, you just, this whole like forgive and forget. Like I'm like, I can't believe that you love me when you said such horrible things to me last night or last week, it just doesn't compute. And so it was really a struggle. And so the more that I started to research and understand this kind of toxic dynamic and also my role in it, because I was very much a pleaser and a perfectionist, and I lied to him about things because I also like, I didn't want to piss off the bear. And I also was like, I didn't feel like he was supportive with my business. And so I lied about that and what I was spending on that. So like I am not trying to say that I am like perfect in any way. But like there are rules that we have to understand, because like I was telling you, I think off camera the other day, was like, I got into some of those same dynamics of like falling for the love bombing. And then at the first sign of conflict, the guy's like running. And I'm like, where did he go? What just happened here? Like I was just trying to bring up an issue and try to bring up this thing, and like he bolted. And I was devastated. And then there was love bombing with the next boyfriend, and he was a pathological liar. And like, it was just kind of a nightmare. But I also was like, I knew he was bad for me, but I also felt like this moth to a flame, like this magnet that I could not pull away from, because there was so much of my emotional needs that I felt like he was meeting and nobody else would be able to meet, because love bombing was real love. Like that's what my brain associated it with. And so there has to be this evolution of like it's like I got love bombed, didn't know what it was, and then fell for it. Love bombed, but knew what it was, still fell for it. Love bombed, thought I saw, I was kind of like, I think this might be love bombing. Still fell for it. Love
Right.
bomb, starting to see it and then being able to walk away. Right. And so I think so many of us also beat ourselves up when we keep getting into this.
Yeah.
We have to catch the pattern sooner. That is part of this, is like we have to do the internal work to heal. And we're going to catch the pattern sooner and sooner and sooner, which is how we heal binge eating, is we're going to understand the pattern and the dynamic so that you can catch it earlier and earlier. Doesn't just turn off, just like with relationships. We need to understand, and we do have our own internal healing work to do. But part of it is knowing, like for me now, like I might still attract some toxic people. Like last year, for example, I did, but I was able to say no. I was able to walk away so much faster. And it was like, I was able to walk away in a couple weeks. And then with one person, it was a couple days. So it's like, wow. And now, like really just being aware of that, of, okay, I'm not like really dating at this point. It's more of like, okay, as I start thinking about potentially dating again, how can I really be and attract the person who is ready for the healthy love and doesn't discard the healthy love? Because I've been in healthy relationships and then I was like, the spark is gone.
Right.
You're not doing it for
Boring.
me.
It's too boring, right?
Yeah. It's kind of like, I'm bored. This isn't fun anymore. Like
Right.
the excitement's gone. The spark is gone. You're just not my person.
Right. And it's probably because you weren't ready for the healthy love.
No,
I
entrenched. Yeah.
I like to say that I have a master's degree from the School of Hard Knocks.
Right.
Narcissism and, the love bombing. And thankfully for me, it didn't happen in retrospect, my first husband, I feel that it sometimes gets worse each time. Sometimes it maybe doesn't, but it like comes out even harder. And the second relationship that I was in, which was I got involved with while I was getting divorced, was I guess a psychopath, just like physically, mentally, spiritual. But he presented to be like what my husband is now.
Right.
But what's fascinating is that it. Something tells you that. I also, within that relationship, started studying it. I used to say I'm the smartest, dumbest girl he's ever been with.
Right.
I researched it all, but stayed. And there was a piece, like even my current husband now says, like, I can't understand how you stay. Like, I'm like, you can't explain it to somebody that hasn't been in it. And for me, it was, I think what do they say? The average, you go back 7 times. So like you're going back because at the end, I used to call them heroin crack, because there's something that you are addicted to, or something about the person, even if you hate them, until you get to the point where you're strong enough. So I think a lot of women heal and get stronger while they're in it, once they do become aware. Exactly what you said.
I think to some extent you can,
but obviously
you have to leave. I think
you have to leave 100% to really heal.
Right.
And I think the love bombing is, it's so funny how they all do the same thing. But like you said, it took you a certain amount of time. I remember after that relationship, I was in a healthier relationship. A very nice guy. He was just very odd. I don't know why he was speaking. But then I was single. I was single for like 3 years, and you saw it from a mile away. Even they can sit down and you just knew. So for the women that maybe are getting caught up in it, you're just not ready yet, maybe, for the lesson. You're just it's the awareness, because I always tell people, like, once you'll never ever ever fall for it again. Once you get to the point like where you're at right now, I don't think, even though you said you really won't, I think we have to, I call it like, you have to become the love of your life.
Yes.
The love of your life.
Right.
I was actually going to do a workshop on that for the month of February, because we are conditioned to actually look outside of ourselves for everything. And we all still fall short of that. You want your husband to, validate you and love you, but it has to come from within. And I think even for myself, it's very hard. Women, like even my own clients I've spoken to, they can't even say self-love. They can't even say the words like, I love myself.
Yeah, right.
Very, very hard. So you don't have to. You could say, I respect myself, or I love that I am kind, or all those things. But I call it, this is how I explain like my transition, is you become an island that has everything you need on it. You're by yourself. everything you need is on there. Love, validation, admiration,
Yes.
everything you need, you're on this island. And when you're ready to invite somebody on your island that is up to par with that island, then you'll invite someone onto your island. But until then, you must become an island.
Yeah.
Meaning, like, you don't need anyone for what you need.
Right.
Because you're getting it from yourself. And once you get to where you basically could do that most of the time, that's when that healthy love comes in, because you won't tolerate any less.
Yeah.
You will
Yeah.
not tolerate
Because
any
you've
less.
learned to give it to yourself, though, and
Yeah.
you've stopped seeking it outside. And so
As
what
much.
I realized after my divorce and then the first breakup, and then as I was getting into that next relationship, was I had never really spent any time being single, like in 20 years. Like I was dating, engaged, married, and there would maybe be a couple weeks, maybe a month in between, like dating different people. But it wasn't purposeful. It was just like, oh, he's here. Oh, he's cute. Oh, and there was one year when I was back in California between when I lived in DC and then when I went to overseas to Bangladesh. But I wasn't doing any personal development work. So it was like, I could be single, but if you're not working on yourself, you keep all the same patterns and you keep everything and you just take it with you. So I think that's been a big helpful thing for me to consider too, because if I'm talking to a man who's been divorced, I'm like, well, tell me about your therapist. Like, tell me about the life coach you're working with. Like, what have you done? Because you just focusing on your career the last 2 years doesn't tell me shit. Like, it actually makes me very concerned. And I think you're probably a red flag because you have not done any work on yourself versus somebody who's like actively seeking to improve and recognize these habits and like, yep, how can I meet my own needs? That way it's like I am whole and I'm going to bring in somebody who is whole. It's not this like enmeshed, I'm going to complete you. It's we are two whole people that are going to come together and help one another, just like be the sprinkles on the whipped cream, on the ice cream, right? It's like it's
a compliment.
A little extra bonus.
You're going to compliment each other. Like I say, you are put on this earth to make yourself happy. The other people are put on this earth to make themselves happy. And then you meet up and become happy with each other, not make the other person happy.
Or each other.
Or each other. I know in retrospect, and I've discussed this with my current husband, like when I first met him, I definitely think I was still in some unhealthy things, nothing major with us, but like just people pleasing, or maybe being, just too much of a people pleaser, and just things that I look back on our relationship that is different now. And what's great about, I feel, our relationship is that we grew together. So like when I grew from that, he grew also. I don't know, if nothing's perfect, you know what I mean? But like we're perfect for each other. That type of thing. And even just, I'll be very honest, even just today I had that little moment, and he knows, it's like I try to explain to him, yes, everything has to come from within. I have to be okay for myself, and I am. But you also need from your spouse or mate some things that you would like. And sometimes we all do. You almost come complacent. Because you just need a little reminder. So like, not, I want women to hear out there, like, even if you're in a healthy relationship, it doesn't mean that you don't need your spouse to tell you you're beautiful, or write you letters, or act like when you first dated. Don't think that you shouldn't deserve that, and vice versa. You want to remind your husband or mate how important they are to you. It's not just this in the beginning, because everyone in the beginning is always, goes over the top. Even the healthy love bombing, the healthiness, we all do things in the beginning where
like it's kind of like exciting and new, and
you forget to date each other. You forget, we don't forget to date each other. I'm just saying, it's like sometimes you feel a little bit like you need a little bit, like, I always say I'm a very like big, if you will, masculine energy, but I'm also very feminine-y, very not needy, but emotional. You need stuff. So I don't want the audience to think that you're supposed to be walking around like, I don't need a man, I don't need anyone. It's not how it is. And I think, I don't want to go down this rabbit hole, but I think that's how a lot of women are nowadays. And we go down this whole psychological rabbit hole of masculine, feminine, but men need to feel needed.
Right.
And if you walk around all the time telling you, I don't need you because I got my own career and I got my own money and and then you like almost demasculate, what do they say? Demasculate?
Emasculate.
Emasculate. I was
Yeah.
missing the word. And then you say, where are all the men at? Like,
Yeah. Right.
there's a fine balance, So don't think that this
Yeah.
conversation is about like just being like, women's lib and I don't need no man and like, because
Right.
I think we both, the males and females do need each other, and it's nature. It's part of like how even Mother
Yeah.
Nature exists. So don't, ladies, don't get too uptight. I mean, up with your self-love stuff.
Right. Well, and I think about it as like want versus need. And so I think about it as like, I want a man, like I want a healthy marriage. I want a healthy man in my life. Do I need a man like to save me? No, I'm going to meet
Right.
my own emotional needs. I'm going to come to him, but I want somebody, I want a partner. I want some place where we can be equals and we can be a team, like a true team.
Nice.
And I think the challenge with some people is like, there's always a hierarchy. Somebody is always vying for, one person is typically vying for power, vying for authority, vying to be the head, it's like, and it's so fascinating because my ex said that I kept trying to do that, but he was just projecting onto me, like what he was always doing. And it just shows like we just weren't a good match,
No,
like
I don't think there's any good match to a toxic narcissist.
Yeah. Well, and like I think about like, he wanted he wants like a 1950s stay-at-home wife who's going to cook and clean and homeschool his kids and make fresh bread every day. And I bet there's a woman out there who wants to do that. But it's not going to be the ambitious, driven, career-oriented women he's dating. It's not going to be the business owners he's dating. Because like I had a business when we'd met and we're dating. Like I made my own money. I was running a business. And so part of me was like very confused where I was like, what, how did this come up? We also we didn't do any premarital counseling, which I think would have been really helpful. There were a lot of things that I think we could have flushed out maybe some stuff, but I was so, I think codependent on him at that point where it was, I am worthy. I am good enough now if he's choosing me and I feel special because he chose me. It plays into all my abandonment wounds from childhood, growing up without my biological father. And it's not to blame anybody. It's just to say I have my own internal stuff that I have to meet. So I'm going to work on healing me and also recognize that when I do meet my healthy person, there's still probably going to be some healing that's going to be done with him. There has to be kind of that recognition and willingness of we're going to heal and work on ourselves separately. And then we're going to come together and there's still going to be some, still going to have some trauma responses. There's still going to be stuff that comes up. And I think about it as what can I learn from all of these relationships, even the toxic ones, even the pathological liar, how can I learn from this? What can I learn about me, about my desires, about my wants and my needs, and be slow to get into things. It's how can I, even for me, it's been take more time to be single. And so, it's just look at your patterns, right? And sometimes it's can I just do the opposite, right? So if normally it's let me get into a relationship, can I flip and do the opposite?
Right.
Maybe, if you're listening and you have been avoiding relationships, maybe your opportunity for growth here is actually to explore what it would look like to trust yourself around choosing a man or choosing a woman. I think so often, and I have clients like this too, where they've been in one or two bad relationships or bad marriages, and they're like, well, shit, I'm done. But it's not because they don't want somebody. It's because they don't trust themselves to pick somebody well, or they don't believe
or they're fearful
person exists. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And the divorce group that I was part of, you had a lot of the women in there. I'm never getting married again. I'm never dating again, because they've been burned a few times. In fact, somebody just posted that she thought she found the guy, but it wound up being, another whatever.
Yeah.
And, I didn't get a chance to speak with her, but it's you're in a sense attracting it to you. So I know, I don't know if I said these 5 words, I think it's 5 words to myself one day and then switched, but over the course of time, I remember saying to myself, you're so outward, they're doing this and they're doing this and he's this and he's that, or abuse, or whatever. You're like, why is he doing this? And finally I was like, wait a minute. Why am I allowing this?
Yeah.
You bring it onto yourself. even though I was in situations, and when you're in it and you don't know, you wouldn't be asking yourself those questions. You have
Right,
to like leave
right.
and then look to see why you're stayed. But once I took that step back and asked myself the question, it makes you see not that you're deserved any of it, but it makes you see that you're dancing. So that
Yeah,
you could be do nothing except accept it. That's where you are at, for lack of a better word, full.
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
someone can only do something if you're allowing it.
Mhm, mhm,
So, and I find in a lot of these, I don't know if you find it in like the toxic relationship groups, like I think when people all group together on a negative subject, it doesn't do them much
mhm,
justice.
mhm,
You know, but like they, he's doing this, what can I do to get him back? Or, you know,
mhm.
why is he this? Why is he that? And they do not put themselves in the situation.
Yeah,
Only as
yeah,
if they're getting it done to them instead of like, why don't you see, you know, what's going on here? How are you?
right,
You're adding to it. You are there. You're allowing it. So you want to
yeah,
empower yourself to at least even ask yourself that question.
right,
And and for the women listening too, sometimes you can't leave right away, even if
right.
you want to. But
Mhm,
once you become aware of what's going on, that is empowering as well. Even if you're
mhm,
have to stay in the situation
mhm,
before you
mhm,
could leave. You know, so
mhm,
if you're going through, you know, if you're in a toxic relationship and you're binging at the same time,
mhm,
have you had
mhm.
that where they're doing it
Yeah,
both at the same
so
time?
so I and I've it's interesting, right? Because like, some people will start, like, binging or binge drinking through, like, during the divorce to try to handle the stress, to handle a high conflict situation, so sometimes it's a coping mechanism, sometimes it starts in the marriage of, like, they've just been in this abuse cycle for so long that
Mhm.
that's how they're trying to feel better, and sometimes it's on the outside of divorce where they've already left, they've legally separated, but their ex is still living in their head, and there's still those same patterns and beliefs and fear and doubt and discouragement. There still could be post like spousal abuse.
Yeah,
Um, and then it's like they gain weight and they're binging afterwards. So there's no like right or wrong, better or worse, but
right,
we solve it the same exact way. We're going
right.
to look at how to handle the urges in the moment. We're going to look at what's really driving it underneath. We're going to work on healing your relationship with yourself, really like build your self concept back up, because with the losing weight and gaining it back, with the binging and the shame, with the toxic relationships, it really erodes our self confidence and our self trust and our self belief. So like that
Absolutely.
becomes the foundation. That's what links both like all of these. And it's when you build that back, now it's like now we have this foundation to build a healthy relationship with food, with alcohol, with other humans, with friendships. Cause I mean, this
Yeah,
happens with friendships
of
too,
course.
you know?
Yeah,
And so it's in working relationships, working dynamics, and it's yeah, my what I always say is like it's not about never binging again. I don't binge anymore. Sometimes I still overeat. Sometimes I still emotionally eat,
yeah,
but I know I catch it. It's like 3 bites. It's not 3 additional meals. It's like it's way, way less. And so there is freedom in the binging, and there's freedom from that, but also recognize like it's okay if you might find yourself in a toxic friendship that you have to walk away from, or or that you now get to you see and you can choose to walk away from it. Just like with the overeating or emotional eating, like I can evaluate that and learn from it so much faster. I think I was probably emotionally eating a little bit more over the holidays, like in December, and so it's like, oh yeah, I think I was probably drinking a little too much, probably had a little more sweets than normal, like had more than normal. It's
right.
just easy to grab a piece of chocolate or a couple, kind of throughout the day. So it's again, it's like we have to be honest with ourselves.
Yeah,
And
and holidays is just it's what you do, right?
right,
And just what you do. It's like everybody, even if someone doesn't have an eating disorder, they
yeah,
overindulge during the holidays. It's just
yeah,
what you do, but you
so
don't
common.
have to do it, but it's
Yeah,
common. You know, I wanted to say something and I forgot. I just wanted to ask you something. Oh well, it's so typical for me. I
yeah.
actually, you said something about. It's okay. I don't want to like waste the listeners' time. So in a nutshell, what would you like to leave the listeners with today?
So, one of my favorite phrases is like saying, "I don't want this for my life," and giving yourself permission to change it. To say like, "I don't want this. I don't want this eating behavior anymore, and I'm going to figure this out come hell or high water. Like, I'm going to solve this problem." Saying, "I don't want this relationship dynamic anymore. this is not what I want for my life, and giving yourself the permission to walk away. Because so often we are looking for permission outside of us versus trusting that inner authority. And
Yes.
you get to give yourself that permission. And yes, it's helpful when other people see it. It's helpful when other people are like, I think that's a good idea, or like, we support you in this. But ultimately, it's like, you have to decide, you have to go first, you have to give yourself the permission. Because
Absolutely.
often too, it's like people can leave, but they feel so guilty. They feel terrible
Yeah.
leaving, or they feel terrible walking away. And it's like, I never felt guilty, because I also knew, like, my ex was not happy with me. He even told me, after I told him I wanted a divorce, like the next day he was like, yeah, you made me miserable the last 10 years.
Wow.
So I'm like, okay, well then this is a good thing, right? Like, I don't want to keep making you miserable. So give yourself the permission, and it's okay to say, I don't want this right now. And it's okay to ask for help and to get some professional help, because I tried for years on my own, struggling with relationships and with food and body image. And I really needed some help from a
Yes.
professional. And there are amazing coaches out there. I have not had the best experience with therapy. For me, coaches,
Yeah.
like life coaching, has been where it's at, and it's what
Yeah.
has transformed my life, like truly. So I I will sing praises, but it's like, find a professional, find somebody that you can trust and that resonates with you, that can help you navigate these times and these challenges, whatever it is that you're going through. And this is where, like, yep, you learn to be your own biggest cheerleader, not your own
Yes.
worst enemy. And it's scary, but you can do hard things.
Yes. You have to have your own back.
Yeah.
And when you get to that point where you're like, I don't want this anymore, that's the awareness. Because some
Yeah.
people may be miserable and not be ready yet, but when they
Yeah.
become ready. And I am also an advocate for life coaching. I used to be a personal trainer, so it's kind of like, you could read about the exercises, and you
Yeah.
can read about the dieting, and you can actually walk into the gym and maybe figure it out. But you need that professional, and no one's saying you have to do this for life. I mean,
Yeah.
a lot of us have life coaches, whatever, switch them around, whatever, business
Right.
coach.
Yeah.
Why not? I always used to say Michael Jordan's the best basketball player I was back then.
Yep.
We all have coaches. They can't do it alone. So if
Mhm.
you're listening and you really feel that you even just want to ask some questions, or maybe you've been thinking about this to yourself, you never even said it to anyone, and you just feel afraid, please reach out to Jillian. I think life coaching is amazing, because what it does is it makes you, I'm going to use the term they use from the course you took, it makes you feel your feelings, because that's why we humans tend to do a lot of the things that we wind up not being that good for us, right? Because we don't want to feel the feelings. We don't want to feel the feelings that we're supposed to feel. You got to feel them, go through them to get to the other side. And now
Right.
you want to figure out, we could go on a tangent on how the whole world has child trauma, and that's why things are going on. But that's really what it
Right.
is. You have
Right.
some things going on that you may not be aware, and you need a professional, especially one that's walked in your shoes, to help you there.
Yeah.
And with that, I like to ask my people that come on my show 2 questions. And my first question is, I'm a big advocate for affirmations,
Mhm.
because what comes after your I am is your
Mhm.
truth in that moment, at least. So what is your I am statement for today?
I am captivating.
Nice. I'm going to write that one down.
I've loved that word since I was a teenager. And I feel like that sums up like how I want to be. And it's like, I want to not just captivate somebody else's attention, like I want to captivate myself. Like I want
Yeah,
to feel and embody that. Mhm.
I love that. That's a good one. And my next question is, and this is a good one for you, but especially with your background, your history, how you grew up.
Mhm.
What word of advice would you give to, let's say, your high school or middle school self?
Mm.
Give like a real important
Yeah.
word.
Oh, if I could, and she would actually listen, I would tell her not to stress so much about trying to be perfect. Like,
Mm,
don't stress. Don't like. It's okay for you. Like, I cried when I got a B+ in AP calculus, like, because
wow.
I had straight A's all through high school, and right, like, and I would just tell her, like, don't take yourself so seriously. Have some fun, relax. A B+ is amazing. You don't have to be perfect, and like, this is the time to enjoy yourself. Like, these are some of your best years in high school and college. Like, enjoy them. Don't get so high strung trying to get it right and be perfect.
All right. Well, you just told yourself that. So
Yes.
now you just told your middle school self. Well, this has been a great conversation, and I think the listeners could really get a lot out of it because, like you said, there is a lot of shame, there is a lot of secrecy, and when you hear, I mean, in our world now, social media, you can hear so many things more. So back when I was
Mhm.
struggling, no one spoke about it, but
Yeah.
people still, you hear life coaching, you don't really hear, oh, they help with binge eating. So, it gives the audience
Mhm.
somebody to call and to just see if they're
Mhm.
a good fit to work with you, because it's a double prize. You have the toxic
Right.
relationship and even the binge eating, and I'm sure you would take one or the other. You don't have to be going through both at the
Right,
same
you don't
time.
need both. Most people happen to be going through both, and the thing is, like, when we understand how the cycle works, it's like you put your attention to breaking one, and you will naturally start to break the other. It becomes so much easier, and you create new results in your life because it's like, "Oh, well, I knew how to do this, or I did this with food, I can now do it with a relationship, or I did it
Right.
with a relationship, now I can do it with food." And so it's really empowering for people. Yeah.
It is because and at the end of the day, you're putting yourself first and loving
Mhm.
yourself. And when you do that, it trickles into every other part of your life. So
Yeah.
with that, I so loved this conversation. I so loved having you on here and meeting you.
Yes,
And I'm
thank you
sure,
for having me. This
yeah,
was
I'm
so
sure
great.
the listeners would love to get in touch with you. So what is it? Everything will be in the show notes. So my listeners know that everything will be in the show notes. But how can
Yeah.
people get in touch with you?
Yeah, so my podcast is called Hungry for Love. So
Okay.
we're gonna talk about hunger, real hunger, fake hunger. We're gonna talk about love and relationships and just how these two things intertwine. So if you want more, visit me there. You can find me on Instagram at Jillian Amadea. I use my middle name, so you can find me Jillian Amadea on Instagram, or bodyyoucrave.com is a great place. There's a lot of free resources there. And but yeah, if you've got questions, if you have, if you want some feedback or anything like that, feel free to send me a DM. I'm always like, that's me personally. I will reply back. And yeah, like my goal is that people can create freedom and peace and ease in their life in all areas.
That's amazing. And that's what we all of us in this coaching field want for everyone, just to
Right.
create a life they love and live a life they love. So
Yeah.
thank you for being one of the beautiful light workers in this world to bring people to that end result.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. I wish you all much love and light and
Yes.
beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. So everyone, make sure you reach out to Jillian if you're interested in working with her or even just asking her questions. And again, thank you for listening to the Elise Morgan Experience podcast. Take care.